Hello, I am Baal Kadmon, and would like to thank you for watching and or listening to this podcast. Today is a special podcast. I'm going to be answering your questions. I received about, 80 questions, and I'm not going to be able to cover all of them in this podcast, but I'm going to try to do as much as I can within the hour and 15 minutes that I've allotted to this. I'm going to be grouping them by type. So we're going to have like the general questions that also include some personal ones of my own. And then there will be these general history questions, which, just so you know, not everyone that is on my Facebook is necessarily into the occult, but also into just the general history. And I am a historian, so I do speak quite a bit on historical topics that may not be directly related to the occult. These two questions, very good questions, are somehow related in some way, and I think you'll find them to be very interesting. And then I'm going to move on to questions that are specific to my books. I don't have a lot of images for this podcast, but, I downloaded a couple images that I paid for to keep it a little bit interesting. I'm going to include pictures of my personal library, elements from my apartment that I think you might like, and just images of my books and things of that nature. So, okay, let us begin. The first question was, how are you? I'm doing great. How are you? Okay, next question. Are you left-hand path or right-hand path? It's hard for me to figure it out. That's a good question. I don't really label myself any of that. I don't believe in it. I think that nature has established the template that both left and right-hand path work together. I mean, nature is not only about, beautiful flowers and daffodils, but it's also man-eating tigers and tornadoes and hurricanes. So we have this interesting dynamic that exists. It pains me to see that there are these factions in the left-hand path and the right-hand path, and there's infighting not only between them, but in their own ranks, which is very reminiscent of religion, Western religion, in terms of sects and things of that nature. And it's odd because we are trying to get away from religion, and yet we are turning the left-hand path and the right-hand path into religions of their own, with their own sects. And I think that's absolutely horrible, and we should cut that shit out right now. Just to continue on that for just 1 second, it reminds me of the movie The Dark Crystal. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it. It's essentially, the gist of the story is that there was a crystal that, when it was intact, the universe was whole. It suddenly, there was a break in the crystal, and a shard went missing, and all of a sudden the universe turned into this very dualistic place. So you had the Skeksis that represented sort of this darker energy, and then you had the wise ones who were considered, quote-unquote, the right-hand path, the light ones. But even the light ones knew that they had to merge with the dark ones to become one. And the whole premise is that once that broken shard was added to the crystal, both the left-hand path and the right-hand path merged together to create the true power. And to me, that's how I view it. It's a very simple concept, but very hard to apply. And that's why I think that we should stop fighting each other about this whole left-hand path, right-hand path stuff. It's a different approach for very similar ends. And again, nature is the perfect example because, like I said, it's not only flowers and daffodils, it's man-eating tigers, tornadoes, and hurricanes. Okay, next question. Is there a risk in performing mantras or black magic on someone? The conventional information that's out there says yes. My answer is yes and no. Sometimes people who do some horrendous things don't get payback for it, and sometimes they do. I feel that there is some element of karma here, and if a magician or an occultist has some lessons that they need to learn, they will experience consequences of their actions. I've done in my past many dark rituals and never paid the price for them. And then some of them I did, and I did pay the price for them, but I learned a lesson. So I feel that the answer, again, is yes and no, and you can't know if you're going to be chosen to learn this lesson. But for the most part, there's no way to tell if there really will be some type of payback for it. I know that there's that whole philosophy, it comes back at you 3 times, whatever. It doesn't always apply. This is an interesting one. I heard you are Jewish. Well, not quite. It's sort of half true. My paternal grandmother was from Yemen, and she was of Jewish background, and Ethiopian even, 2 generations out. But then I also have many relatives that are not Jewish, also of Middle Eastern background, so we have a little bit of a mix. On my mother's side, they are predominantly Irish Catholic. My mom herself doesn't really identify with that. She's actually more pagan than she is Catholic, and that's why I have such a good relationship with her in this sense. She converted before I was born to Judaism to placate my paternal grandmother. But again, as they say in Judaism, if you convert for any other reason than to be Jewish, if it's like just for the sake of the wedding, the conversion is nullified. Excuse me. And so I guess technically, no, I would not be considered Jewish. But at the same time, it's also an identity, and I do not identify as Jewish. I actually don't identify with anything. I don't like that label. Labels are great on paper, but it's not something that I do. I don't identify as anything in my normal day-to-day life. Have you any experience with Haitian Voodoo and Loa? Yes, I have some experience, but I don't have enough experience to write about it. I only write about things that I have firsthand experience. I have some experience, but not enough for me to be an expert in the field, and therefore you'll never see a book about it from me. Maybe one day if I do study it and work with it for several years, maybe in the future, but I do not write about anything that I do not have firsthand experience on. I know some people just write, they pull it out their ass, I don't know how, and they just publish it because it's going to sell. That's great, but that's not me. Okay, next question, which is really good. I like this one. I saw your comment on balance versus harmony. Can you explain that? Sure. A few days ago, I posted a memory about the difference between harmony and balance. If you look at a balance scale, there's nothing going on. It's dead. It's just static. And then you have harmony, which goes up and down. Things move up and down. And just like the chemistry in our own bodies, if everything was completely balanced, actually you'd be dead. Your organs sometimes, when you eat something, this particular hormone goes up while the others go down. And it has to be that way. Otherwise, what's going to happen is like a dysfunction. But notice one goes up, one goes down. Nothing is in complete static balance. And this applies to spirituality as well. That's why, again, to backtrack onto the left hand and right hand path, and this is my personal opinion, you don't want to balance yourself in one, or rather push yourself into one aspect. You want to work with it because, like I said, life is about light and dark. If you embrace only the dark, you will suffer. If you embrace only the light, you will suffer. Life is not so idealistic. It's not just one way. It is not balanced. It's never been. Nature has proven this. You have a lion who will 1 minute lick its own cub and then another minute eat it. You see, this is up and down, up and down. So no, you don't want balance. You want harmony. Okay, and next question. How can I go about finding the difference between spirit talking to me and myself talking to me? That's a good question, but sometimes there is no difference. Sometimes spirit will talk through you in your own voice. I experience it all the time. And I'm not talking about voices like, coming from the walls or something. I'm talking about this sort of inner voice. And it doesn't have to be your voice, but in a lot of cases it is. The best way, really, to determine that is to experience it and experiment with it. Obviously, if it tells you to kill someone, don't do that. But I'm talking about more nuanced things, and just test it and see if that works for you. And that's really the only way to do it. And in time, you will grow to trust it. I now trust that inner voice. For a very long time, I didn't, because I allowed my fear space to be like, no, this can't be right. But in time, and it took some time, it's not going to be overnight. I mean, for some people it might be, but it was not for me. And you just sort of develop this connection, and it will take time for most people. This question is very interesting. It seems that both the white magic and black magic really is about being instead of doing. Well, it's actually both. But yes, being is really where the magic happens. And both black magic and white magic are trying to tap into that. And the next question, actually, it's not even a question, it's a comment that I made earlier, will inform this a little bit more. I stated earlier, which was actually a memory of mine, but I couldn't share the memory for some reason. And I said, magic is not a sedative. And there are several answers to this, and one answer is that, yes, magic does involve us in this world because, to be frank, many of us are doing rituals to attain money, to attain sex, to attain love, to conquer our enemies, for success, whatever it is, in the material world. So it does take some action. It will push you in a certain direction. My main focus, though, when I made that comment, was that many people use magic as a form of sedation, a form of of medication in some way, where they are suffering emotionally, and they use magic sort of to prop themselves up. And unfortunately, the problem with that is that in certain people, it can actually cause a chain reaction of dysfunction, where suddenly there's delusions that come into play, where they suddenly become other people. They disassociate from their painful life here on earth and suddenly become this other entity. And that is a defense mechanism, I'm sorry to tell you, but that's what it is. And many people use magic as a way to anesthetize themselves from real life, and that's really what I meant. Is magic is not a sedative. It is a tool of transformation. It is a tool for the attainment of goals. It is not a tool to bury your feelings. Okay, because there's a great saying. It says, "Feelings buried alive never die." They do not die. What happens is they become zombies, and they will catch up to you at some point. And I'm not even a big zombie fan myself. I know that was a long-winded answer, but I believe it was very necessary. Okay, this question. What form of magic do you find most potent? This is, I've been asked this several times, and my answer is the same every single time. There is no way to determine this. I have people who've used demonic magic and angelic magic for their whole life, and they had some results, but nothing impressive. But then they tried one of my mantra books, and it just unlocked everything. All of a sudden, they're achieving everything that they've worked 10, 15 years to do with the other methods, and it works for them. And then I have people here, actually one of the questions I will address in the future, where they're reciting mantras for weeks and weeks and months, and nothing's happening. But all of a sudden they use Saint Expedite, or they use a demon or a jinn, and everything works for them. So it really is subjective. For me personally, they all have worked. I personally love mantras. I love Saint Expedite. He works for me like a fucking charm, let me tell you. And I do use demons, and recently I did, and I use angelic as well. The jinn I haven't used in a while, and I'll discuss that a little bit later when there's actually a jinn question there. But in either case, they're all effective, and so it's a very subjective question. It's hard for me to answer that. The next question is about meditation, and this is a really good question, because really what it tells me is that a lot of people are being taught incorrect information about meditation. And the question goes essentially something like this: I'm having a hard time visualizing during my meditations. And the thing is, meditation is not about visualizing. Certain meditations are, clearly, but most meditation practices are about the exact opposite. You don't want to visualize anything. You want to clear your mind. And even clearing your mind is hard, but really you can't force it. You have to work gradually towards it. It is not easy. The mind is a monkey mind. It wants to just grab onto everything that's shiny, and all these thoughts, negative or positive, sexual, hatred, whatever. The minute you try to silence it, it's going to be like, no, I can't do this. But the way to quiet it is to let it happen. First of all, don't judge yourself, because if you judge yourself, you're never going to get meditation down. And two, let the feelings and the thoughts flow. Let them flow. Don't stop them. What you resist persists. Remember, what you resist persists. If you resist those thoughts, they're going to come back at you with a vengeance. So just let them flow through you. Take 5 minutes every day, and when you're up to it, you up it up to 10 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever, and every day do a little bit. And every week, think about adding a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with. I went from literally going 2 or 3 minutes years ago, where I was like, oh my God, I can't even quiet my mind for 2 or 3 minutes. And now I can do hours. I can do days. I'm actually going to be going in the near future to a weekend of complete silence. I'm going to a monastery, actually, complete silence and almost complete, contemplation. I can do that. I'm not afraid of it. I mean, sure, it's going to be somewhat challenging, of course, but I can do it. But I worked up from barely doing 5 minutes to doing this now. And who knows in the future how long. I could probably go weeks, but now a weekend is probably as far as I can go. So just be gentle on yourself and take it slow. Please don't put pressure on this, because the more pressure you put, the harder it's going to be. Okay, this is a good question. Why do I feel that I don't have enough strength in my spells? Well, first of all, we have to understand what do you mean by strength? I'm going to assume that you don't personally feel like that energizing feeling that some people get when they're doing their rituals. Well, one, you don't actually need to have that energized feeling. It's helpful, but you don't really need it. All you really need is to have your intention, sharp. Okay, you know what you're looking for, and you're going to have faith in the ritual and in the entity or whatever you're using to attain it. yes, it's going to be hard to muster because we have this little bit of doubt in us that it's like, this is bullshit. I shouldn't be doing this. This is not going to work. And that's a problem. And a lot of us have it, even us who have been doing this for decades and decades. We have sometimes those moments where we're like, man, is this all just bullshit or what? But it's not. It's just our brain, because our brain we want something so much that we get pessimistic, and it's just, it's like a virus, and it's not just us occultists, it's everyone has this this problem. So again, you don't really always have to have the feeling, but do have the intention, and that intention could drive your feelings. Okay, this is an interesting one. What do you do if you started a ritual and then you realized that you made a mistake in the preparation? And this person wrote other questions as well, but their questions actually indicate that they didn't read any of my books, because they're talking about, preparatory things that I don't even mention in my books. But I'm going to answer the question anyway. If you're using a specific system that has these elaborate methods, which I don't personally ascribe to, but it certainly works for others, follow their banishing ritual in that system, and then regroup. You have to do it that way. If you're using their system, use that system, but banish immediately. If you are in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I'm just about to call upon something and I forgot this, I forgot that, banish. My systems don't have that elaborate setup, so you're never going to encounter that really in my books, but you will in other people's books, and that's my advice to you on that. Why don't you use sigils in your book? In your books, rather. I found that they were not necessary for the ritual. I think that they are nice as a way to focus your energy, but from my experience and from the experience of people that I work with, it didn't add anything particularly. And I've actually recently had an email from about 2 weeks ago from someone who is fairly versed in sigil magic, trying my system, and they said, oh, it actually worked and I didn't need the sigil. So it is a personal choice. You can add the sigil. It's not going to change anything in my method. If it helps you focus, by all means, do so. You're not going to be corrupting my work by doing it. If you want sigils, use sigils. It's completely okay. Next question. Why is your work so simple? It's interesting because it literally ties into the last question. I found that the overly complicated systems are a hindrance for most people, and it was certainly a hindrance for me. When I first started, I did it by the book. I fasted, I wore white, I did all these things, the circles and all that stuff, and it certainly works for some people, but I found that I was sort of sick and tired of it, and I said, you know what, let me experiment. And I experimented at my own risk. Okay. And other people that were willing to take that chance with me experimented too, and found out that complication wasn't necessary. It just wasn't necessary for the ritual. For some people, they need that for focus, and that's completely fine. That doesn't make them less advanced or more advanced or anything. They have a system that they use, and it works for them. For me, it did not work. For many, many thousands and thousands of people, it doesn't work. And that's why I wrote the books the way that I do. But I'm also writing with the assumption that the people who are reading my books don't have a background in the occult. I have to assume that. I can't assume that everyone who reads it just happens to know all of this information about the occult. So they are in many ways, 101 in some way. But they are also quite advanced. They're not less powerful than the advanced systems. For some people, it's actually more powerful. So again, it's a very subjective thing. But again, I write these things in a way to be accessible to everyone, from beginner to advanced. This next question is very interesting. I've actually been asked this a few times, but this one person came in the inbox and asked me about the Kabbalah. And I mentioned to them a while ago that there are 3 types of Kabbalah. we have, and they sound fairly trivial, but they're not. We have Kabbalah with a K, and Kabbalah with a K is Jewish Kabbalah. If anyone uses it for any other purpose, they're actually using it in the incorrect fashion. Kabbalah with a K is the Jewish Kabbalah, the stuff that comes from the Zohar, Sefer Yetzirah, Sefer Raziel HaMalach, Sefer HaRazim, Shorashei HaShemot, and all of those books, and the works of Yitzchak Luria or the Ari or Moshe Cordovero. That's Kabbalah with a K. So it's almost exclusively Jewish. And then there's Kabbalah with a Q, and that is a syncretic, theosophic, hermetic Kabbalah, where you will see the tree of life, and you might have Brahma as Keter, and Isis as Binah, So, and you have that sort of syncretic ideal, which I love. I'm syncretic myself, so I'm not knocking it. I actually love it myself. But it is different from Kabbalah with a K, although it does incorporate many of the archetypical images, Adam Kadmon, the four worlds. Adam Kadmon is technically the fifth world, and the Sfirot, and the tree of life, and the Klipot, and all of that stuff. So people like, the late Elizabeth Clare Prophet, her form of Kabbalah was Kabbalah with a Q. Anything, if you hear Ascended Masters and Kabbalah with a Q, just so you know. Kabbalah with a C. Kabbalah with a C is Christianized Kabbalah. So we're talking about the incorporation of Christian themes, Jesus, the cross, into the original Hebrew archetypes. And it's actually quite good. I like it myself. I'm going to be creating a video course on Kabbalah with a K. I will eventually do Q and C as well, but I'm going to start with K because that's where I feel we need to start with this, because that's, essentially the origin. And it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen. It's going to incorporate texts that haven't even been translated yet in English. I'm really looking forward to it. You'll love it. Okay. The next two questions are historical in nature. Like I said, I do have people on my list that are history buffs, and I want to keep them happy too. So here we go. We have two questions here, and I think you'll find this very interesting as well. What is the reason or reasons the Egyptian culture, ancient Egyptian that is, stayed so intact through its 3,000 plus years of history? That's a great question, because if you really look at their art and their way of belief, it remained relatively intact for nearly those 3 millennia. The easy answer, and the one that actually is quite true, is that they were xenophobic. They didn't like other people. They just didn't. They felt, and especially the higher-ups, felt that they were the center of the world. And everyone was sort of lesser. They were a very elitist culture, and it shows in many of their texts. There's no doubt about it. And also geographically, they are flanked by hostile deserts that enemies are not likely to traverse, although sometimes they did, but it was fairly rare. And then you have flanked to the north, the Mediterranean Sea, which they called the Great Green, which they feared as well. They were not mariners. They had boats and stuff, but they hugged the coast. They were known to hug the coast. They wouldn't just like fly out into the middle of the sea. The only time they did that was with Cleopatra, but that's a completely different story, and in Egypt was completely different then. And of course we have the Nile to the east, and the Nile Delta was not exactly the easiest place to cross. So after they were invaded once by the Hyksos, or the Sea People, they hunkered down and became even more xenophobic, and it showed in everything that they did. They wouldn't even be buried outside of Egypt. They would conquer other lands, but no, they had to be buried in Egypt, because it was just, they couldn't imagine being buried outside of Egypt. They were very nationalistic in their ideals. So that's really one of the reasons why it was. The only time the art and the religion truly changed was with Akhenaten, which was a very short-lived rebellion of a pharaoh who was well, I guess you could call him a monotheist. He changed the art, he changed the religion. He was considered a heretic, but when he was gone, and we don't exactly know how he died. Some people say he was murdered. Some people say he died naturally. And by the way, his wife is the great Nefertiti. The religion immediately changed back with his son, King Tut. King Tutankhamun, was actually Akhenaten's son. And he eventually was dispatched as well. Some people say he died of natural causes. But in either case, the religion and the culture and art reverted right back to the way it was. And then the second time that it really changed, and permanently so, was the conquering of Alexander the Great of Egypt. And then it completely got Hellenized and completely changed. The last pharaoh of Egyptian blood was Nectanebo II. And after him, there was no Egyptian pharaoh. We, of course, have Cleopatra, who was the last pharaoh, but she was Greek. 100%. She had zero Egyptian blood in her, just so you know. Next question. I've heard that the Hebrew of the Dead Sea Scrolls is fairly different from biblical and temple Hebrew. It was an observation, but it's really a question. They wanted to know why. They were the Essenes. We're assuming that the Essenes were the ones that were settled in Qumran. And so that's why they call it Qumran Hebrew. They were a breakaway sect. They were self-ostracized, but they would have been ostracized in the temple period anyway. And some elements of their language were unique to them. And that is called, by the scholars, anti-language. Anti-language is a phenomenon that develops in groups that feel ostracized either religiously or socially, and so they create sort of their own sort of lingo, but the base language remains the same. And so many scholars believe that Qumran Hebrew has elements of anti-language in it. And I think it's actually very interesting. Okay, let us now address questions specific to my books, because there are quite a few here. So we have, how would you break a generational demon family tracking curse? Well, the one problem with this question is that I don't know what their background is exactly. Like, I don't know what type of magic they've used, if they've used any at all. So I'm just going to answer how a recommendation of how I feel they can try to do this. And there are many different ways, so I'm just going to recommend one, since we don't have a lot of time. I recommend a Kali mantra, actually. It's a very powerful mantra. You would want to recite this 108 times a day for 40 days until you feel that that curse is gone, because obviously you realize that there's a curse on you because of the effects, and if suddenly those effects start to die down, you sort of realize that maybe you're doing something to help you in that way. So the mantra is Om Klim Kalikaye Namaha. Again, Om Klim Kalikaye Namaha. You want to say that 108 times a day for 40 days. And that's the typical prescription. You might not need it for that entire time. But do try it. The next question, also mantra related, is saying that they've been chanting mantras and meditating, and they feel that they're stuck in some way, like they're not getting the visions and psychic abilities that they want. This is a pretty good question, and it's a little complex. It's not so straightforward. But oftentimes, when we want something badly, we'll do a mantra to it, and there is like this air of desperation that's sort of like, oh my God, we must have it, we must have it. That is often an impediment to your mantra practice. So I would definitely, in this situation, even if you're not feeling desperate for it, when something is not working, and this applies for all magic, not just mantra magic, pull back a little bit. Take a week, 2 weeks off. Just let yourself sort of cool down, because even in my own experience, when I've done this early in my day, and not to say that it hasn't happened to me even more recently, where there's something specific that I want, and I chant, and it's not moving fast enough or whatever, and then you feel like this urgency. Okay, I got to do this. That's the time where you have to pull back. And I'm going to mention this again, not only in the next question, but a little bit later in the podcast. So just step back a little bit, take some time, hone your intention. Figure out why it is you want these psychic abilities. What is the purpose? You just want them for the sake of wanting them. Sort of hone in, but do step back, because what's going to happen is that you're going to feel discouraged, like you've mentioned, and that's not going to help you. So take a little bit of a break. The next question, also very similar. Someone is using the Vashikaran mantras daily, but they're seeing very little to negligible results. And they've been doing this for, it doesn't specify how long, but clearly long enough. I suggest again, that feeling of discouragement is toxic to your practice. I would say there's no ritual to suddenly, unblock it, because you're not really experiencing a block. There must be a greater purpose rather, that why this is not working for you. Again, I would say take time out, a week, 2 weeks, and then resume. I'm telling you, that has been so helpful to so many people, and to myself included. You won't regret it. I definitely think take some time, really, and don't feel that you're losing time. You're not losing time. All those chants that you've done are not suddenly going to waste just because you stopped. They are there. They are working. Just take some time off. Okay, this one is interesting. Again, another mantra-related question. They were saying, my financial condition is not that good, and I need something to help me push forward, and I have various obstacles in my way. In this situation, for mantra practice, you didn't state what mantras you've been using, so I'm just going to recommend 2 here, and try them and see how they work for you. The first mantra is the Ganesh Mantra. I believe is very powerful. A lot of people use it on my Facebook. They use it all the time, and it works like a charm. And what you want to do is use this mantra first to remove the blocks that you might have, because there might be some blocks there that you just sort of need to move past. And this mantra, again, just like all mantras I'm going to recommend in this podcast, is 108 times a day for 40 days minimum. But again, you might see results sooner. The mantra is Om Gam Gana Pataye Namaha. Again, Om Gam Gana Pataye Namaha. And you want to recite this 108 times a day for 40 days to remove the blockages that you might be experiencing. The next mantra that is, for prosperity is one for or to Lakshmi. It's a very powerful mantra. A lot of people recite it every day. And again, this is something that you want to do, again, 108 times a day for 40 days. The mantra is Om Shrim Mahalakshmiye Namaha. Again, Om Shrim Mahalakshmiye Namaha. One of the reasons why this particular mantra is so powerful is that it has the seed syllable Shrim, which is very powerful for material abundance and is in many ways a powerhouse for this specific mantra. So try that 108 times a day for 40 days. You may see results sooner, but keep on going with that. Again, that recommendation is the minimum recommendation. The next question is for my Pendulum book, The Path of the Pendulum. The question is, do you need a protection ritual before you use the pendulum? And they ask this because I mentioned in the book that in many ways pendulum work is very similar to the Ouija board. You know, you're using it, you're not moving it yourself. Technically, there's something else moving it. It could be a subconscious mind, it could be a spirit. And I used it only as a form of comparison, but there's no particular protection ritual that you would need for the pendulum work. Just keep to the guidelines in the book. I feel that they are very powerful, and see how it goes from there. Okay, the next question is from my book, 72 Angels of the Name. And the question is fairly straightforward. You know, how many times do I have to perform these rituals to any particular angel that they're working with? Ideally, you would only need to do this once, but it will not harm you to do it at least once a week. When I say at least, actually just once a week really is preferred until your outcome is achieved, and there will be no detrimental effects to it. The next question, also related to that book, is about the angel Yeliel. And I mentioned on one of my sites, in the occultmindscapes.com site, that there is a sexual element to the angel Yeliel. The person who asked the question was a little taken back by the fact that I associated sexuality with an angel, and I would like to tell you that actually it's completely okay to do so. We tend to have a Christianized Western view of what angels can and cannot do or be, and sexuality is part of the human experience. You are here because of sex. I am here because of sex. Your pet's here because of sex. And some would even say your plants are. Whatever. Sex is part of our experience, and it's not dirty. If you feel it's dirty, then yes, of course, you don't want to associate it with the divine. But we were created not to be ashamed of it, and angels are more than happy to work with you in that manner, because the sexual energy is a very powerful energy, and you can use that in your magic, including angelic magic. So do not be shocked by the fact that I mentioned that you can use sexual magic with angels. It's fine. The next question is somehow related to the last one, but on a different book, the Lilith Magic book. And the question is, what is your opinion on the succubi and the incubi? I have a little bit of an unconventional view of them, and the reason why I mention Lilith here is because she is the quote-unquote Western template for the succubi, but I feel that there is some misconception there. If you take a Western approach to this, a Western religious approach to this, a succubi is completely evil. But from an occultist point of view, a succubi is, be it Lilith or another class of entity, is part of the occult toolkit. You can call upon them, you can use them for yourself and for others, and people are afraid because they've been told that the Western tradition says, oh, no, these are demons, they're going to hurt you, they're going to kill you, or whatever. I don't know a single person who has died from a succubus or an incubus. In my book, Lilith Magic, actually, the last ritual is how to sexually dedicate yourself to Lilith. And knowing her reputation as being a succubi, everyone that has reached out to me, that is, told me that their life was transformed from that ritual. They didn't get their semen or whatever taken out of them and killed. They were transformed, both men and women, actually. Because it really is gender neutral in this way. But, the West say, okay, succubi, quote unquote, rapes men, incubus, rapes women, whatever. the thing is that those again are very arcane, not arcane, archaic understandings of this. So you want to call upon them? Sure. Just, my book alone can help you, and there are other books out there that can help you with the succubi. But again, it really is a matter of conception that prevents people from using them. Saint Expedite. This was an interesting question, but again, it relates to an earlier one. What spells or prayers are equally as powerful or more so than making a request to Saint Expedite? Again, it's a very tough question to answer because what is powerful for me, powerful for others may not be as powerful for you. As I mentioned earlier, some people find the mantras to be mind-blowing after years of doing, saint, hoodoo, magic, whatever, and it doesn't work for them. But also the opposite is true. Some people are like, no, the mantras don't work for me at all, but hoodoo, saint magic, occult, seals, whatever, work for me. So it's very hard for me to answer that question. I feel personally regarding Saint Expedite, he is very powerful. He's worked for me, 9 out of 10 times. And it's for this reason, if you look at some of my books, especially the newer ones, you'll see that there's a dedication to him in it. And I might dedicate it to someone else as well. The reason why that is because he has come through for me so many times that I was running out of things to do for him. I can give him the 5 pieces of pound cake and the 5 pennies. I tend to give quarters and then donate it, and the roses and the whiskey and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I'm running out. I want to give something special. So I dedicate my books to him going forward because he has been unbelievably helpful. And to stay on the topic for 1 minute, it's not a question, but an observation that I would like to make. Some of you might disagree with this, and that's completely fine. In some of the hoodoo texts, it states that when you work with Saint Expedite, you want to turn his picture upside down, so then the results will be quote-unquote faster. I feel personally that is very disrespectful, and I would never suggest something like that. I mean, obviously, I can't tell you what to do, but if I were you, I wouldn't do that, just so you know, because I know that some people do recommend it, and it works for them, apparently, but me personally, I wouldn't do that. Okay, the next question we have here is, this one really caught my attention because it was something that no one has ever asked me before. They say here, can I use the triangle of art to contact my wife who passed in March? Wow, first of all, my condolences to you. I've lost people in my life, and it's just the worst, absolutely the worst thing in the world. My condolences, really. Just for those who may not know what the triangle of art is, it is the triangle in which a conjurer, it's Solomonic magic, in which a conjurer conjures a demon, and the demon is sort of contained in this triangle. I personally used to use that in the early days, but found that it was not particularly effective for me, and I personally feel that a spirit will not be contained by a couple of words written around a triangle, but that's just me. Personally, I would not. And I don't know what your relationship was with your wife, so I can't assume anything. But I feel personally, and I presume you were very much in love with her, I would not conjure her into a triangle of art. I feel for me personally that would be very disrespectful. I think unless you fear her in some way, I'm not sure why, but you would know the reason for asking that. I can't assume anything. For me personally, I would feel that was very disrespectful to conjure a loved one into a triangle. It's a very interesting idea. I'm sure other people have thought about it. Personally, I would not recommend it. I would say that you would want to connect with her mentally, emotionally, pray, speak to her, but to conjure her into a circle, into a triangle, just it doesn't feel right to me, and so I cannot recommend it. Obviously, I cannot stop you from doing it, obviously, but I would not even attempt that myself. The next question is about my book, Circe Magic. They ask, will you be producing more information on another book about her? Unfortunately, there's not a lot to go on. We have just some of the mentions that I mentioned in the book. There's not a lot of information about her. So there's not a ton I can add to it. But there are other books that cover her, but from a Jungian and a psychoanalytic mindset or point of view. And that's that she's more of an archetype than anything else. And those are great. I actually do mention them in the book. And I suggest, if you're very interested in that, to please read them. But otherwise, I don't have a lot to add. I mean, obviously I can write something about more of my experiences with her, and certainly you can too. If you would like to share that with me, we can maybe co-author an article or something. Just let me know. Just email me, but not to the email that you used for your question, because that has since been taken down. That was only for this podcast. Really, the best way to contact me is through Facebook, but if you can't, please email me at reshef@baalkadmon.com, and we can discuss something there. The next question is in regards to my book, The 72 Demons of the Name, even though it's not exactly a question about the book. The question is, do you invoke demons for others? If you know me, I do not. Obviously, for very close friends and family, I will do work for them, but I do not do it in the public at this time. There are many people who do and who are very effective, and you can consult with them, but I personally do not, because I just feel that I don't want to get involved with someone else's karma in that way. I'd rather teach you how to do it, even if you have no experience, because you did mention that you had no experience. That's why my books are written the way they are, to help you get that experience. But no, I don't do it myself. I mean, I could make a killing if I decided to, but it's not really about the money for me, because if it was, I would be charging $500 a pop and doing rituals for people. I'd be rich, but I'm not. That's just not my way of doing things. I'd rather teach you, but there are certainly many talented occultists and magicians out there that will definitely do it. They're definitely worth looking into. Yes, of course, there are going to be people who are not legitimate, that prey on people who have serious issues that they want to resolve. And unfortunately, it's very hard to vet. And so it's really something that you're going to have to find out for yourself. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't do it myself for others. Okay, the next question, and it's a really good one, actually. It's about something in my Jinn magic book. What is your criteria for working with Jinn as opposed to other spirits? Excellent question. I mean, one of the best ones in terms of the Jinn book. There are a few different reasons. The Jinn are more approachable in some way, and it's hard for me to get the right words, because I have to anthropomorphize things a little bit, so I'm just going to do that. They live in a parallel existence to us. For example, in the Quran, we have a clear indication that the Quran itself was written both for man and the jinn. And whether you believe in the Quran or not, the point is that even in a sacred text, it shows that God is speaking to not only humans, but to this other class of being called the jinn. And to stay with the Quranic theme for a moment, since most of what we know of the jinn is from the Quran, and then obviously other texts like the Hadith, which is sort of like the Talmud of the Islamic world. There's more there as well. The head of, or rather the quote-unquote Satan figure, Iblis, was not a demon. He was actually a jinn. So he was part of this parallel life to humans, which makes it even more impactful. It's one thing if in the Islamic conception he was like an angel or something, then you'd be like, okay, so he's sort of removed, sort of far removed from humanity. But no, I mean, he is part of this jinn family, which is a parallel to humans, and they have very similar characteristics. It's even implied that there are different religious factions within the jinn as well. And I do quote some of that in my book, The Jinn Magic. I find it fascinating that there is literally a parallel universe to ours that is comprised of these jinn. Whether they live in cemeteries or this or that, that is definitely a folk religion, and some of that might be true, but I do believe they have a very robust life outside of our conception. So to answer your question in a sort of a long-winded way, I feel that they are more accessible. They are more likely to respond than not. I found that working with demons, sometimes they seem to not be there, or they were there, but there was no clear sign that they were. Whereas the jinn, I've had some pretty clear signs that they were. And although I don't work a lot with them right now because I simply don't require their help at this moment, they are very present. I've had very weird experiences I wrote about in my book. I had a bookshelf, not a bookshelf, but a shelf completely fall, new bookcase. Out of nowhere, these are the light books. They just came crashing down. I've had knocks and things move over and turn over, and I even won some money from their nudges. So they do work if you want something a little bit more accessible. The only issue with them is that they are a trickster energy. There's no doubt about it. They like to fuck with you, for lack of a better term. And they might want to scare you a little bit. You'll hear some knocking in the middle of the night, or all of a sudden your pet will look in the corner and you don't see anything, but it does, and it's fucking with your pet's head, So they can do that. Also, they tend to have this ability to attach to things. There's someone on my Facebook, I'm not going to mention names, but they have a religious article and a piece of furniture. There's jinn attached to it, and it actually informs them, speaks to them, guides them, and it appears that it's really happening. And so that can happen as well. So they're definitely more interactive. I would give it a shot. I mean, I wouldn't have written the book if I didn't think it was the right thing to do. Definitely try them out. I think they can add significantly to your magic. And I know this was a long-winded answer, but I think jinn sort of get a bum rap a little bit. So definitely try them. I think you will enjoy it. Next question. The daimonic companion, or rather it's a question regarding the daimonic companion. What happens to the servitors if you don't use them? They dissipate. It's interesting. Unlike other entities, these companions are your creation. You are creating them to help you. They are intimately involved in your life because you have allowed them to be. They are essentially tools that if you don't use them, they're inactive. And so use them or lose them, essentially. And I don't mean to trivialize it, but that's essentially what it is. And that's why often you'll have people who need to do multiple rituals to sort of give this daimonic companion more and more energy. The next question is very similar, is how do you get rid of your daimonic companion after they've achieved their purpose? The same way, just stop using them. I mean, you can dismiss them, verbally if you would like. You can certainly do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But generally, when you stop using them, they are no longer active. The next question I should have added to the front end of this podcast, but I just saw it now, and so I'm just going to mention it here. I've been asked about Siddhi, which is the attainment of certain supernatural powers from either recitation of a mantra or yogic positions. And someone asked me, how do I attain Siddhi? And I mentioned in the book, Tapping into the Power of the Chant, how to do that. But I want to clarify that, again, because I write for people who are just starting out, or with the assumption that people are just starting out. I don't go too deeply into Siddhi, but just so you know, there are many, many levels of Siddhi. The first attainment you can get from reciting 10,000 recitations of a particular seed mantra or mantra, and then you acquire some of that strength from that mantra. The more you recite, the stronger it becomes. So you can have multiple layers of Siddhi. There's not just one. That's why some people are like, oh, well, when I attain Siddhi, what about this? It's like, yeah, you can attain Siddhi, but remember, Siddhi does not end. There is no one level of Siddhi. And I think I needed to clarify that because I did not do so in my book. Because again, I'm writing from the perspective that this is someone who's just coming into this. So the initial chants that I provide and the recommendations for achieving Siddhi are adequate. But if you want to experiment and move forward with Siddhi, just keep on reciting the mantras and just keep on doing it. And it changes for each level. So if 10,000, let's say, or 100,000 recitations is your initial step into Siddhi, there are no hard and fast rules what the second and third one are going to be. So don't assume that because you've done 10,000 recitations and you've achieved Siddhi, that another 10,000 you're going to reach level 2, so to speak. It really doesn't work like that. There's their initial Siddhi threshold, and you will find that not only in my books and others, but then when you go beyond, they don't really cover that. They're not like, okay, what happens if you recite it 1,000,000 times? No one is really mentioning that, but just so you know, every recitation past the quote-unquote Siddhi threshold just increases the Siddhi. I think that was very important for me to say here because I was getting questions that I was like, oh man, I should have been more specific in the book. But hopefully this will answer your question on that. There you have it. I've answered as many questions as I can within the hour. Just so you know, I will be doing a live version of this at some point in the future. I don't have a date just yet, but I definitely will. And then we can extend it for as long as you need it. I'll put out a poll and see how long you guys would want it. I mean, if you wanted just another hour live, that's perfect. But remember, if you do give me questions, please, 1 or 2 questions tops. I had someone send me 20 questions. I was like, you know what? You have to distill this. You can't be sending me all these questions. There are other people who have questions, And again, that email address is no longer valid. So if you email it now, you will get your email will bounce. So please contact me on Facebook and we can talk there. A couple of announcements. Again, like I mentioned, I am creating a course on Kabbalah with a K that is just going to be very insanely comprehensive. So far, there's nothing like it. I'm going to bring a perspective that no one else has in books that haven't even been translated yet. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And I will, of course, announce it once it's done. It's not even close yet. I'm still working on the Hebrew for occultists and Aramaic. Those are probably going to be completed very soon. And so they'll come out first, which is great because the Kabbalah course does have some Hebrew in it, even though I'm going to completely, transliterate and explain it. It probably wouldn't hurt if you had some background in it. Currently, I'm working on a book that isn't pre-release now. You can get it called Cho Demystified, Severing the Ties That Bind. And this is going to be actually the second book in my series Baal on Buddhism. I have another one out called Dependent Origination for the Layman, which I released several months ago under the radar. I tend to release some books under the radar, so if you really want to see what I have, just go to Amazon.com and type in Baal Kadmon and you'll find books that you probably didn't even know I published. This is a great book. It shows you how to, quote-unquote, feed your demons. And it's not demons as in, the hellbound ones, but more about your inner conflicts, the things that are holding you back in life, how to work with them within a very unique process. The book is slated to come out at the end of November, but I usually publish way ahead of schedule. It just gives me a sort of room to breathe a little bit. I really think you're going to enjoy it. Just look on Amazon.com under my name, sort by publication date, and you'll see it pop up there. So there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. It's over an hour. I hope I wasn't too long-winded. I sometimes tend to get that way. I love to digress, as you see in my books. I love it, and hopefully I didn't do too much of it here. In either case, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, next one will be live. I hope you are well. Have a great evening, great morning, wherever you are in the world. I will speak to you soon. So mote it be.